It's been a while. I haven't uploaded a video in a while. All right. I wanted to talk about something that I have has become very clear to me in this past year when I was 17, 18. I think I knew about it internally, subconsciously, but it became very clear as I started noticing it more and more. Sometimes you learn a lesson and you start seeing it everywhere. If you learn that, I don't know, that envy brings nothing good, you'll see it everywhere. If you see that getting angry about things isn't good, you'll see it everywhere, right? If you see that no gratification or pleasure that requires no effort is not good, then you'll see it everywhere. I don't have the best examples in mind, but you could probably think yourself of a lesson that you learned somehow and that you started seeing everywhere. If you get me, then that's the point. I don't know how to start this off the best way possible, but what I wanted to tell you is really just a reminder, something you probably heard before, that happiness is not about having more, but needing less. And the first time you hear that, let's say that you're not the most mature person on the planet. Let's say that you are relatively young. Let's say you're 14 years old. You think of that phrase and you say, "Fuck, I don't want to have less things. I mean, I like my possessions. I like this car that I'm driven in. I like this computer that I have. I like this game that I play, right? I like these clothes that I have, you know? You wouldn't want to have less. But it's not about material possessions. At least that's something I've noticed. Or maybe it is, but it can be seen even in another area of life, in frustration and peace. You could say that peace is not about everything being right, but is more about less things having to be right for you to be at peace. In material possessions, going back to the first example, need if you need to have this, if you need to have that, and you don't have those things, you're gonna feel bad. That's put the simplest way possible. The simplest way I can put it is that if you want things and you can't have them, you're gonna feel bad. Now, if you didn't really want those things in the first place, you wouldn't feel bad. That's obvious, right? But the point is in not wanting these things. It's okay to want things. But the thing is, being full, being whole with not having them. I may not have the phone that I want, the laptop that I want. I may not live in the place where I want to live. I may not have the life that I want. But we're getting too deep into other things that are not just material in there. But if I'm able to be whole, if I'm able to be purposeful, fulfilled, but more than everything whole, you know, and that's all that matters, because that is regardless of whether you still do or don't have the ambition of getting more things. That is regardless. The thing is, if you're okay without it, if not having something doesn't devastate you, then that's better. That's the best. If you don't, then that's okay. You're striving for a better physique. Let's say that I'm doing that. But if I don't, then it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It doesn't mean I'm not striving to have a better physique, but it does mean that I'm still confident, I can still take my shirt off in the beach. I can still look at myself in the mirror and not be disgusted at myself, you know? And this is a real example because I would want a better physique. I would want less body fat, right? So yeah. Now, to put this where I want to put it, think of a person that's frustrated, really frustrated. A person that's having a mental breakdown, whoever you think it is. Could be someone in your life, could also not be, could be someone fictional, could be something that happened recently, could even be yourself. You're right now picturing that person crying on their knees because of something, or maybe not too much, maybe like drinking or something, having their head like this because they're worried, right? The trick is they're worried about something. It's pretty obvious, right? They have to be worried about something. It's not about nothing, right? What I wanted to tell you is that most of the time, you don't need to be worrying about these things. What do you worry about, really? Bills? I don't know. But I would argue that if money is not an issue for you, then you shouldn't have any excuses. There are things that you should worry about, but if you're lucky enough to have your basic needs met, you have a roof over your head, you have water to drink, food to eat, you have internet, you have electricity to light your room up, you have family to aid you in whatever problems you have, you are more fortunate than most people in the world, if we're talking worldwide, because there's always someone that has a better situation than you. But we're not talking about that. The thing is, if you have health and you have accessibility, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Most likely somebody in your life hasn't died or anything like that. Most likely it's not something that big. Most likely it's just an assignment that you don't know how to do. Most likely it's a girlfriend that just broke up with you. Most likely it's a friend that spoke behind your back. And most likely it isn't even that bad. Most likely it's just that someone on the internet did something that you don't agree with. Or someone that you know did something you don't agree with. Or someone that you saw did something that you wouldn't do. And that right there is caring. You care too much about other things. You care too much about things you can't control. You have to take a good look at your circle of control. I don't know in what book you've seen this. You can maybe chat GPT that. But there's a book, a really good one. Maybe The Power of Habit, something like that. But there's a really popular book that talks about your circle of control. There's things that you can control in your life. There's things that you cannot control. You cannot control how others react to whatever you do in life. All right? You can't control what your choices are. You cannot control what your circumstances. You cannot control, sadly, how tall you are or what your looks are. You cannot control your past. But most of what your life's circumstances have come from your decisions. Because if you're someone with opportunity, if you're someone with availability, that things are available to you, like I described earlier, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. You should be able to. You should be able to change your life. You should be able to turn your life to whatever direction you want it to turn to. In my case, I'm speaking from experience. I have a roof over my head. I have light. I have electricity. I have internet. I have food. I have family. I have friends. And I have a functioning brain and a functioning logical system. There's people with worse than that making better choices than I am. And you shouldn't allow that to be the case. But that's diving into another realm, the realm of, you're working hard and trying to strive for success and whatever you want to succeed on. And then you have some competition with others. There's people with bad circumstances that do everything in their power to try and turn things around. But you, that you have everything, you don't make that effort. You take it for granted. But I would assume, I would bet that that's the natural order of life. If you have something granted to you, then you forget about it, really. You know? You don't become grateful for it. Oftentimes you become grateful for things when you lose them. Whether it is that you have a blackout in your house and then when it comes back, you are much more appreciative of having electricity around you. Can be anything. Can even be the death of a loved one. Luckily, it hasn't happened to me yet, but I would bet you would really regret not having spent time with someone that you lost, you know? A lot of the times we have opportunities that we don't realize. We have, I don't know, things that come easy to us and that we don't realize them. But yeah, that's another topic. I shouldn't be derailing too much. You have what's necessary to not really be worrying about anything that serious. This is another topic, but I'll still, sprinkle a little bit of that into this conversation. Alex Honnold is arguably the best climber in history. He has free soloed one of the hardest mountains to climb ever. Vertical mountains like rock climbing. And he doesn't have a sense of fear very well developed for whatever reason, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense because if he was really afraid, he wouldn't be doing all those things. Free soloing, like climbing things without a harness. Very few people would have the balls to do that, right? He said in a podcast that when was the last time you experienced real fear, like real physical danger? The thing is, if we don't experience things that we could really be afraid of, then we start making fears out of nothing. We start caring about things that really don't have that much of a negative effect on you, unless you placebo your way into it, unless you yourself get affected by it. That's also a whole different topic. The fact that most of the pain that you suffer comes from yourself. Most suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. What I'm saying with this is that we oftentimes make worries or fears about things that really shouldn't bother us that much, especially like the actions of others. And you oftentimes see that in grandparents. Trust me, I know this. I'm in my grandparents' house right now, and they care a lot, and I don't mean that in a good way. But hey, I cannot control that. I would be contradicting myself based on what I'm talking about in this video if I started caring about what their actions are and was bothered by it, if it ruined my day. It's not about giving them power to fuck me over, because they don't want to do that. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes there's people in your life that do want to fuck you over, but most of the time people are in their own lives. Most of the time you're the only one that gets affected by things because you allow them to affect you. So the bottom line of this video is really just don't let shit affect you. Take a good look at what's affecting you, what's bothering you. Should you really be bothered by that? Is your health or your wealth being threatened? If not, then come on. Especially your life. Your life is not being threatened, so most things you shouldn't be worrying too much about. If you worry too much about things, especially the things you cannot control, whether that is in your house, whether that is in your community, or whether that is in the other side of the fucking world, the more you care, the less at peace you are, because you cannot control those things, or at least not directly. You would have to become very powerful to control many things. But that's also another topic. The thing is, if you have a goal in life, especially if you have a goal in life, don't let yourself be inhibited by these things, inhibited by your anger, inhibited by your ego, or inhibited by the actions of others. Don't let those things affect you. Forget about it. It doesn't have to affect you. You have the power. You have the power of immunity. Teen Philosopher out.